I can share a little bit of insights into over the last few years working with nearly all the schools in the diocese implementing Catholic values, as well as I guess now being in a school, kind of what that might look like and, feedback anything. And also part of this, or a whole lot of it, sharing, your own insights, because you've all got, wonderful insights, as educators, and you might have tried some of this, or we might, discuss how we might, move this forward. So, look, this particular session is going to be a pretty short, sharp session, but enough time for you to at least have an initial kind of, some input and some thinking around Catholic values. So this is like an introductory, I guess, type of session. When I say introductory, it's kind of, you'll get the whole program as such. We're not going to get probably specifics into what does this mean in terms of science and in terms of English, but we're going to have some thinking around that. So can I hear why some of you are here, by the way?
For me, it was my teacher goal.
Yeah.
To incorporate the three senses
right.
into when I do the religion units,
yeah.
but also I was interested in incorporating it in all cases.
Great, okay, yeah. So that's your individual teacher goal,
yeah.
Is it? Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so in terms of, so you might have a goal around that?
Catholic values seem to become so prominent in what we have to do.
Oh, okay.
So becoming more familiar and ideas of how we can, fan it out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, just
good.
Be open-minded about it and just see where we can go with it.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. In terms of secondary? You were asked to? Good, at least it's a good honest answer. That's half the times I used to go to professional learning. You just asked to go to it and you can't. So hopefully we learn a little bit about it. Because it is a diocesan program. Let's go around, we won't hear from everyone, but what are some of the things that we would say is special or different, in a Catholic school?
We're talking about how it builds religious tolerance.
Religious tolerance, okay, yeah. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, I just think when you are exposed to, any sort of religious beliefs, it does build tolerance and it builds a wider understanding of different religions, as opposed to not having it in curriculum
at all. Yeah, thank you. Great point, because in a way that it's brought to light, isn't it? And often kids will ask questions and so forth, so that's a good one. What are some others? Or are you feeling it's not that special right now because it's the end of the term and a bit over it?
Well, I think it's very different.
Yeah.
Well, I think the possibilities that are available to us are very different in the sense that our calling, if you like, or the responsibility that we've taken on is very different.
Yeah.
If I had taken a position in a state school.
Yeah. And why is that?
Well, for me, the clarity that, I'm teaching in a Catholic school and I've been employed as a practicing Catholic to profess the word, to lead children to the person of Christ through, what's happening, and hopefully and in that builds tolerance and understanding. First of all, to really understand their own faith and their possibilities, and within that, I think that the whole concept of faith and reason. It's about thinking about and getting information and being informed and asking big questions and pondering and all
absolutely.
Of that.
Yeah, wonderful point. Wonderful point. It is that sense of vocation, isn't it? That's what we're called to in Catholic school, to be witness and so forth. Come on, table. You can give us something.
Well, for us, we were actually discussing that what's special about teaching in a Catholic school is because it actually reflects our own, personal beliefs that we are actually able to extend our practices of faith to our students.
Yeah.
So that's
it's an extension, isn't it? And that's the idea. Sometimes we know, sometimes that doesn't happen, but especially if, we can, share our own faith and insights and beliefs and so forth and help our students along the way. So thanks for that. What about this table here? There's some good discussions there.
We were talking about how the Catholic faith is kind of embedded into the whole school.
Yeah.
The life of the school, and that we hope that the kids from what they take at school, they pass it on to others, they use it in their own lives. It's not all about showing the Catholic faith at school, but it's also through their own lives outside of school and after school and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't stop just in the classroom, but the idea is they take it. And hopefully, well, after they've graduated from school and so forth, we might be able to plant some seeds there. If you were to ask, well, what, in terms of our diocese, what's our approach to learning? Right? If I was to ask you that question, what's our approach to learning and what makes good teaching and learning, you might come up with things like, I don't know, learning intention, success criteria, literacy block, Focus 160. Sometimes for teachers, that's what comes to mind straight away. That's what good teaching and learning is. However, our diocese puts this up as our statement of learning, which starts with quality Catholic schooling. And what's our core moral purpose? Has anyone seen this document before? Yep, couple of people are nodding, but most people wouldn't. Now, if you were to search, just go into our CEDP website and go statement on learning, that's what would probably come up. Okay, so this is our approach. It starts with this, and then it goes through and talks a little bit more about the how. But this is really the why. So why are we teaching in Catholic schools? And in terms of our diocese, what it starts with are these 5 essential marks, what we see here. 5 essential marks of a Catholic school. For those of you that might be aware of it or might not, this is actually a document. These 5 marks of a Catholic school comes from the Vatican. And it says that Catholic schools should have these 5 marks, these elements, like a checklist to say, this is what we want universally in our schools. And our diocese, and many dioceses around the world, take this very seriously and embed it into their policy document. Now the point is, we don't want it just to be a policy document. We want this for it to be lived out, okay, in our everyday interactions. But one of the things we see is number 4, okay, where we're being called in our diocese, actually higher, part of our universal church in education, a Catholic worldview is imbued through its curriculum. A Catholic worldview is imbued in its curriculum. So what might that mean, do you think? When you read that statement, so you've either got it in your booklet or you see it up there, what might come to mind for you when you see that? Who's got some ideas? Get the brains going.
That is like universal.
Okay. Yeah, it's universal. Okay, so the approach, the universal. Yeah, it's a worldwide approach. And what might it actually spell out when we say a Catholic worldview? So what do we mean by a Catholic worldview, if we were to unpack that? What are we talking about there?
Understanding of the world.
Yeah, and it's a Catholic understanding of the world. It's what we, as Catholics, are saying. Worldview we might translate to perspective, or lens, or the way we view things. Right? So we're saying that we want our students, to help our students have a Catholic perspective, okay, imbued throughout its curriculum. So that word imbued is quite powerful as well, isn't it? It's in everything that we do, in other words. So in other words, RE, or this idea of helping kids with their faith, is not limited in primary school to 30 minutes a day, which we know doesn't take place, but that's what that's emphasising. Or in secondary, it's not just up to the RE teacher to help the kids in terms of, okay, this element of religious education and Catholicity in a school. Okay, so what we're being called to do, in other words, is for everyone. Okay, this is for all of us. We can't do this if all our teachers aren't on board with this. Okay, so this is just emphasising, I guess, what we're saying as a diocese, but our universal call for Catholic schooling. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. So I start off with what our diocese is saying, and then I'll go to what, there it says Vostes, but NISA. So this is in terms of a secular institution. And if you were to go to any of your syllabus documents, the first page or first 1 or 2 pages would start with saying that this syllabus is built on the K-10 curriculum framework. Okay, any NISA syllabus has that. And what's this K-10 curriculum framework? Well, it starts off with basically, what's the goal of the syllabus? What's the goal of our teaching and learning? Is it about kids just rote learning content, then knowing their times tables, knowing how to write? Well, it doesn't say that. That's not what NISA is telling us. It's saying that our goal, okay, in terms of teaching and learning, not even in Catholic schools, in any school, is talking about here that at the end of the day, we want students to develop a system of personal values. And we need to take into consideration, okay, from NISA, a secular institution is asking us to take into consideration the moral, the ethical and the spiritual. Now, did you know that in your secular documents? So that's what we're being called to do. And not only us, any school is being called to do this. Okay, so we are here in terms of our Catholic context, but it would be if you are in an Islamic school or a Buddhist school or even public school, an independent school. Teachers are trying, and we know that at the end of the day, we don't want rat bags leaving our school, right? We want kids, you know, not only do we want them to be able to think critically and be able to, you know, achieve well, but we want them to have some type of values, right? We want them to make a difference in society. And we think about our new syllabuses, what do they have in them that aren't explicit, I guess, in the old syllabuses? So think about, you know, if you're in primary in terms of English and mathematics and science and tech and history. Secondary, I don't know if any of you are on the new syllabuses. Yeah, we've got a couple of English teachers here. What do we have in the new syllabuses that's quite explicit in the actual syllabus document that we have to take into consideration when we teach? What's that?
Just saying context.
Context was, yeah, definitely. I guess it was in there, the old. But you know those little funny icons we see?
Oh, yeah.
You probably, you know, had enough of people telling you, you've got to include them in your program. What are those little funny icons? Cross-curriculum priorities, and we've got general capabilities, which come from the Melbourne Declaration when they, you know, got together and think, what do we want our new syllabuses? Where's Australian education going? And basically those general capabilities and cross-curriculum priorities was to highlight, and what are those cross-curriculum priorities? Sustainability, right? We've got Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander priority. We've got the Asian perspective. Then we've got general capabilities, critical thinking, we've got social, we've got, you know, work and enterprise. All those things are there to highlight. We want the syllabus not only to be in terms of content, but also some personal values, right? Something where the kids can come away with and be able to make a difference when, you know, they leave, right? And our syllabus document, our particular KLAs, is just the context that we're trying to explore. Okay, so in terms of our own diocese, we've talked a little bit about even our statement of learning. We've also got what it says there. If we look at our strategic, you know, direction, I guess what I'm just trying to pull together some of our big picture documents that talk about that every school, you know, has to be a centre of Catholic faith. Okay, we've all heard this term, the new evangelisation. And the last time in 2007, our bishops have got together. Okay, in New South Wales and Canberra, one of the big ticket items for them was this whole idea that RE, or faith formation for students, isn't just limited to the 30 minutes a day or to your RE lessons. But they're calling us, the bishops, that, you know, we're being asked as teachers, which is challenging, but still being asked that, you know, other disciplines besides RE have to consider the Catholic dimension to their subject areas. Okay? So when we're talking about the word Catholic values, okay, that word Catholic values, what might come to mind when you hear that word? What are some of the things you might think of? What's that?
Human dignity.
Okay, human dignity. Not surprising, coming from St. John Paul II, where it's an emphasis, I know.
Reconciliation.
Okay, reconciliation. Hope and resurrection. Now, some of these things, often when we speak to teachers, and this is true, when we say, what's Catholic values look like in your class or in your school? And they say, oh, it's fantastic, I'm a really good witness, the kids share, they take turns, we help one another. Absolutely, that's part of Catholic values, but that's not part of Catholic values across the curriculum. That's very different. So what we're talking about in this particular professional learning, or for this program, is our planned teaching and learning activities about the Catholic perspective as in the curriculum. Not necessarily about how they're acting and how they're sharing and all those things. That's a flow-on effect, absolutely. I'm not saying for 1 minute that that's not important, but what we're talking about here is it's our teaching and learning. What are the activities that we're planning for? What are some of the syllabus areas or content that might have a nice alignment where we can bring in the Catholic perspective? Is that okay? I just want to be clear with that. So it's not necessarily just about behaviour and so forth. This is about planned activities in terms of our different KLAs. So can I ask you this question? I want everyone to have a think. Again, I'm not asking probably easy questions, but get us thinking, and you might want to scribble it down in your booklets. Can you think of some ideas or some of your, if you have done this, okay, where you've connected some of the content naturally that you're teaching to a Catholic perspective? Yeah, thanks.
Well, I had just a guided reading group where we looked at Hitler's daughter, but then we went on to the genre of propaganda and looked at bias in the media and how that ethical lens and that moral dilemma, and then where our Catholic values can help us to decipher those texts, so we're still ensuring freedom and
wonderful. Look, one of the messages in this particular session and to think about when you go back to school, it's got to be natural, right? It can't be forced. It's got to actually flow. So it's not that Catholic values drives what you're doing. Your syllabus is driving what you're doing. The Catholic values, the Catholic perspective gives you the context to teach your outcomes, right? So in terms of text, nearly all of you, especially in primary and even in secondary, the text we use, think about that. I know naturally, especially I'll just pick on primary because working with a number of primary teachers the last few years, these type of discussions come up naturally. You do it naturally, right? And sometimes you might talk about, for instance, it's propaganda or it's bullying and so forth. And I'll give you an example of bullying. So we all teach the kids, and it might be through the text, it might be through discussions and questions you ask. We all know it's wrong not to bully. But what I say to teachers is that particular comment or that view, they're teaching that at every school. It doesn't have to be in a Catholic school, right? We know that bullying's wrong. But what makes bullying wrong in a Catholic context? Right? You go that step further and you ask the kids, well, what does it mean to be made in God's image? Right? And suddenly, this discussion about bullying has a little bit more perspective and context to it. Right? And then the kids, because we get it, we understand bullying's wrong, but especially for younger kids, and I'm learning very quickly even for year 7s, if you don't explicitly make the connections, they're not going to get it. Right? We as adults have got it over a number of years of thinking and, in our experience. But what we're trying to do is be very explicit about our connections. And a lot of this, and I'm sorry, I should have said this at the start, this program is not saying that you're not doing this right now. Often I get teachers going, what do you mean, Daryl? I'm already doing this. So what are you trying to say? I know that you're already doing it. Naturally, it comes to us as teachers. But sometimes we're not explicit about it. So this is really being mindful and explicit in terms of the questions we ask. So not what's wrong with bullying, instead maybe ask the question, what does it mean to be made in God's image? And suddenly that opens up. Does that make sense? So it's just about the questions and just being mindful of, and the text is one example. Okay? What are some other examples? So that's one, a really good one. Okay, in terms of the text we use. Anyone else on that table like to share?
So in history, we're looking at the Goldfields at the moment.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how the Asian miners that came to Australia were being discriminated and marginalised based on that they were finding gold and others missing out.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the right to freedom and having respect and dignity
Yeah.
for each other and love thy neighbour.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Authentic way of brought it
Yeah,
out.
look, that's a great authentic way, and that, see, a lot of these things, the syllabus, these issues, the syllabus is driving us to talk about them anyway. But are we just stuck on just looking at it in terms of a secular worldview, right? Or can we actually bring in that Catholic context so kids start understanding in terms of how faith fits into why we shouldn't discriminate and freedom and so forth? Okay, so that's a really good one. What about this table? A lot of discussion there.
Well, I've got kinder.
Yeah.
And I've just the story. My kids call Billy and you.
Yeah.
And that's basically bullying.
Yeah, great.
So in the context of when we were reading that story, I then brought in the Easter thing.
Wonderful.
What's just happened over Easter and being like Christ, and so I did mine that way.
Yeah, and so nice and natural. That's what the text is lending itself, and often they will have these themes to it. So that's a great one. Anyone else on this table? So we got one with a text. Maybe is there another one? Come on, all of you must have done something.
We'll pass.
No one? Too shy? You've got great ideas. Okay, we'll go to this table. Anyone?
We're doing PDHPE.
PDHPE, yeah?
And we're doing All About Me.
Yeah.
And we're getting children. We've had a lot of discussions about incorporating Catholic values in values that they hold really important both for themselves and their families.
Yeah.
And having a discussion about that. So that's also linked to creative arts, where they're getting to do a self-portrait of themselves that include the values that they believe that are important to how they see themselves.
Yeah, so that whole idea of sense of self and relationships and health, and it's nearly impossible not to bring in some Catholic perspective. Well, it's really important to bring it in, because if they don't, it can go very wrong. They get a wrong view of themselves and others. So EDHPE, think about that one. If you haven't incorporated some of that, that's really, it's a massive, syllabus to bring in a lot of the Catholic perspective. I'm sure already you're doing things like that. So that's a great idea. What about in terms of a secondary context? Do you have any examples?
So, since our formation goal is human dignity.
Human dignity, yeah.
Yeah. For English, we're looking at multicultural poetry.
Yeah.
And some of the poems that we've looked at are talking about the negative experiences that migrants and refugees face.
Yeah.
So, for example, we looked at a poem called Refugee, and we're looking at the discrimination they face coming to Australia.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how, as citizens of Australia, how would we uphold their human dignity?
Yeah. Wonderful, which is St. John Paul II's formation goal, that whole idea of human dignity. And what a great way to bring it into, to our English text and to have those discussions. Any others?
In geography, learning ability.
Yeah.
So we're able to look at what makes a place livable.
Yeah.
And compare how we live to how third world countries.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings in that idea of the kids thinking, okay, there's not that equality across the board.
Yeah.
To get them to think a bit deeper about how that can change.
Yeah, wonderful. And I strategically asked this question to emphasise to you that you're already doing this work. Okay? So, I know everyone didn't share, but I saw everyone was discussing things, and I know naturally that you already do this. So this is about how we do it, and maybe just bringing it more to the forefront in what we're doing and how we might, have this a little bit more central in our classes. But already, you're doing a fantastic job with this. So for those of you that don't know, the way that we meet, okay, our call to incorporate the Catholic worldview, okay, which was from our statement on learning, what NISA is asking us about bringing in the moral, the ethical and the spiritual, also what the bishops ask us in terms of the Catholic dimension. Here in the diocese, we're doing this through the Catholic values of the curriculum project. So I've emailed you the link to the website. Hands up in all honesty, who's used the website before, the Catholic values? Who didn't know about the website before today? Good, I'm not hoping, hands are up, but I'm glad that it's something new for you. and please take it back. So there's a whole resource that's being developed to assist this whole idea of the Catholic perspective, okay, Catholic values. And you've got that email, there's a link there, as well as it's in your booklets for you to have a look at, okay? So right now, there are pages up there for maths, science, history, English, PE, which are very explicit about different areas in the syllabus where you can bring in the Catholic perspective. But it's not to say if you're a TAS teacher or if you're teaching geography, right now that's not finalised, but you could go into the Catholic values, or there's a search button there, and just type in, for instance, multiculturalism or whatever the particular theme is, and it would be able to point you to the part of the page in another syllabus, but when still the Catholic perspective is explained. So it's not just limited to those subjects just by doing a search. This is one place where you can get that, but there are other places, okay, that you'll be able to find things like this. But this is one, just to let you know that things like the website Professional Learning, okay, the teaching educators are here, okay, so Scott, Franca, Tanya, people in the office, myself, I'm happy, just email an email away, they're out there, possible for them to come out and assist you, okay, in the work. That's the whole point, okay, of this learning. So, I already heard some of you talk about, reconciliation and others. So all of you have seen this. Every school's been given one of these, or a few of them, not one of them, a whole lot of these, as well as little posters for each value. Primaries are nodding. Has everyone seen? If not, ask your REC, ask your AP, ask your principal, and if we need to, we might need to, the office can order more, I'm sure, but there was a whole heap have been printed and sent to schools. So, what's the point of this? Before this program, when I used to go to schools and go, do you have values? They say, yeah. Some would say, we've got 52 values in our programs. Others would say, we've got none, they were scrapped. Others were saying, maths teachers were saying, we've got 6. Science teachers were saying, well, we've got another 8 in the secondary context. In other words, there wasn't a uniform approach. This is the approach in Parramatta. So these are the 7 core values that we use. Hence why the posters are up. Okay? So you need to, and please, what I'm telling you today, take this back, okay, to your colleagues back at school, okay, and share with them this. Share with any resources we send today. Please share it. So the idea is that these posters were developed, okay, from the 7, and they're in nice student as well as teacher-friendly language. Hopefully that most of us would be able to use. Pretty straightforward. And the images are there to also draw that out. Okay? So these 7 basically have been chosen because you could fit any of the Catholic perspective into 1 or 2 or many of the 7. Okay? So these are the 7 that we use. This is the type of language, okay, that we want to be using with our kids. And we'll talk about how we might already do that. So the idea of these 7 are there to help us connect our syllabus content knowledge, so bullying for instance, with what the Catholic perspective is that we're made in God's image. So what are the 7 core Catholic values there? They're there to help us or help the students understand the Catholic perspective, not the other way around. So we don't necessarily need the students, I mean it's good if they do know all 7 and they can memorise it and explain it, but at the end of the day what's more important is they understand what the Catholic worldview is. They understand why bullying's not right. Not that they can just regurgitate to you positive view of life. They have to understand what positive view of life is. Does that make sense? And there's little descriptors under each of the 7. So in terms of language, if you want to help with what type of language am I going to use, have a read of these. Have a look at their pictures. See if you can explain it to the kids. So when you're, I've seen teachers do wonderful jobs. They read the text and they might say, after a bit of explanation, so which one of the 7 might that connect to? Get the kids thinking about it. Get them being able to explain to one another, how that links in with being made in God's image, or all human life is precious. So just in terms of this posters, everyone's got one on the table. Just to clarify, what you see in terms of the top, which is not the biggest font, and CV2 and CV1. They're the Catholic values. What sits under it are just some descriptors. Okay, so the Catholic value is positive view of life, for instance, but that statement summarises it, that all human life is precious. Okay, and then, you know, again, some other key words to help you maybe explain it to the kids. Dignity, okay, respect, you know, defending life, community and common good, you know, love thy neighbour. And you see also a Bible verse there for each one, okay, that schools, that you might use as teachers, just to explain it. What we're trying to do is explain, okay, what this Catholic worldview is. Okay? Now your teachers, I know, and you're tired sitting down, so we're going to stand up for a little bit. Can I get you standing up? And what I want you to do is, so can I give a little bit of context to why we're standing up and what we're going to do? We're here. Has anyone heard of Santa Sophia before? This college? No, probably not. So this is a brand new college. I'll introduce you to Ivy, who's one of the teachers here as well. Hands up, Ivy. Okay. So Ivy's one of the teachers. So there's 3 of us that teach here. So we're at school pre to year 12, going to be out at Box Hill, okay, in the next couple of years. But because families have started moving in, they need a school. We've started up this year, very small. So we've only got year 7 and St. John Paul II, where we've got 4 teachers here, generously give us some resources, okay, and give us this place that we share with them and use, okay. So we're based here, and 24 kids we've got this year, okay. Started with 24, and that will go to about 100 next year in terms of the interest that we've had, and then the projections are in the next few years it'll be 2,000 kids out at Box Hill, pre to post, preschool to post school. Okay, so we're quite happy with that 24 right now. We're not going mad. But one of our, I'm just giving you the context to this place. So when you do the gallery walk, you know what you're looking for. That's our learning framework here at Santa Sophia. So what we see is, like many places, well, like all schools, we teach our syllabus content area. Okay, but besides that, the kids are also assessed on their learner capabilities. So in our projects, not only do we have the content, but we've got things like digital intelligence, enterprise, literacy, numeracy. You know, I mean, a lot of schools have these types of things, but they're embedded in our projects. So kids will get assessed, for instance, on how they collaborate, how they're communicating, how they're working in a group, how they're working in terms digitally, you know, how they're going there. In terms of their literacy and numeracy, that's all embedded in, and they're assessed of that outside of mathematics and English and so forth. But one of our learning capabilities and our motto to this school, Santa Sophia, is wisdom through faith, hope and love. So they've got a holy wisdom. We have here holy wisdom learner capability, and the holy wisdom learner capability is in all their projects. They're also assessed as, do they get the Catholic perspective? Do they understand it? So in other words, the's no point, for instance, one of our projects there on cyberbullying, well, they've got to understand the Catholic perspective to that, and they're assessed on that. So we're very early on, okay? So please, what you see up there is our first attempt at our projects and everything. So you see the project walls are up, okay? So that's the RE project wall. If you go in the other room, we've got mathematics. You see PDHPE, you see TAS, you see English, you see science, okay? Have we done a great job with the Catholic values across the curriculum? Probably no. But what you see is some attempt in terms of the Catholic perspective. So all I want you to do is go for a bit of a gallery walk and see if you can see where that Catholic perspective is in terms of the project or in terms of what it looks like in terms of the display. I want to explain how you brought that into it, or any feedback about that?
Okay, so with the project, it was about Noah's trip to Mars. So we were thinking about if something happened to the Earth, then we would have to occupy another planet, and Mars is the one that we chose. And then we turned it into a stewardship type project where we incorporated that in the driving question. So how can we be stewards in sustaining all life forms on Mars? So the kids had to choose living organisms and bring them to Mars. Well, they don't bring them, but they had to make a proposal of how to bring them. and see how it will fit in a biosphere that they will plan for Mars. But then also we focused on how they then sustain that biosphere, but also take care of the animals and make sure that they, were upholding, God's creation and taking care of it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest though, so with our project, the kids, I felt like, so this is just an evaluation, I felt that we had to keep coming back to stewardship because some of them, when we came to the presentations, didn't really focus so much on the stewardship part. They focused on living things, what they needed to bring, what they needed to make sure that they had, but just tying it back into that Catholic value was, the link wasn't clear. So I think for me as a teacher, I need to make sure that even though it's something that I put in that project, in a Catholic school it is, a main thing for us, so then I need to keep coming back to it and keep emphasizing it so that the kids also know that it's very, very important here in Catholic school.
Thanks, and I think that second part's the most important part, what I want you to take away from it. Because I've had the same experience and others that have done it. If you just think of a great project and you put it into the driving question, or you think of a great activity, if you're not continually referring to it, if you don't have explicit teaching and learning activities to draw it out, and maybe have some discussion, and get some data from the kids in terms of, so as an example, you see the PDHPE one, one of the things it was about being human and what's the Catholic perspective to human dignity and to what it means to be a human. And then we did this work with them and it's all up there, and then we asked them on Google Classroom, they all had to write, what does it mean to be human? And when they don't mention any of that, we know that we haven't hit the mark.
Sometimes I feel that it needs to also be experiential for them. Like they won't really understand it unless they experience it or have, something that they've gone through that they can link back to that Catholic value. So for us, with the stewardship project, I felt that, okay, I need to really allocate not just one lesson on what stewardship is, I need to allocate multiple lessons on what stewardship is so that they can really understand it and then apply it. Sometimes we think it's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to, tick the box, put it in the program, I'm just going to mention it, and I've done my duty as a teacher in a Catholic school, but it's more than that. It's, we are in a Catholic school, so we really need to teach, the value. We need the kids to really understand that as well, because when they graduate, they go out, are they really going to live that out? If they don't understand it, they're not.
And especially at the start, you'll have to have a number of hits at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it connects to the maths, doesn't it? The 200 hits.
200, yeah. Well, why 200 hits only in maths? I mean, that's teaching and learning, isn't it?
So that understanding.
Yeah. So don't get frustrated. If you've got to spend a bit of time with this, like everything, they will get it. They'll eventually get it after, so they're not going to get it in 1 week or 5 weeks, but if you continually refer to it, if you've got, the visual's a big thing. If you've got it up somewhere, think about your spaces. If you've got somewhere where they can actually go, so the poster was up there, that PDHPE, they had to go and they had to have a look at the poster, then make some connections with it, and you can see a bit of some of their thinking on there. When the visual's up there, it's easier for the kids. It's kind of in your face a little bit, but if it's just in your program and when you think a good activity is there, you bring it out, the kids might not make that connection with it.
Excuse me, Daryl. It's also in the scaffolds that you have. So, for example, with project-based learning, if you have scaffolds that really unpack that value, then I know some schools are doing project-based learning, but some aren't. So, I guess it's building in the scaffolds and the anchor charts that go with it. Yeah.
Who's doing project-based learning, by the way? Anyone? So exactly as Frank said, it's got to be up if you are going down the PBL path, then it has to be at the beginning of the planning of the project. Think about your end product and think about how, up front that you might bring in the Catholic perspective, not just a standalone. I don't want to keep you here for too much longer, so I just want to give you time to look at the 7 core values. Okay, because at the end of the day, these are the 7 core values that we want to be embedding into our classrooms and into our programs. Okay, can you have a, even if it's just a quick brainstorm, have a look at the 7 and can you connect where some of these might fit in to some of your units of work. So you might write down, for instance, positive view of life. You know, that fits currently into the English text that we're using. You might look at sacramentality, CV5, and you might say, oh, that fits nicely into the unit we're doing in science and tech. So have a quick think about now, where might some of these Catholic values fit into your either current unit of work or your units of work coming up? So this here, it's not going to be the be-all end-all, but it's just to start some thinking and discussions around where some of these Catholic values might be naturally aligned. Okay? Can everyone think of at least one area? Okay, good. I won't, spend time in getting you to explain it, but the whole point is that hopefully you found it pretty easy, being able to think of at least, a unit of work or something coming up where you can be able to make that connection. And I've emphasised this while going around it again as a group. The crucial part is it's got to be natural. All right? It's got to be really natural. You don't want to be force-fitting these things in. Okay? And I'm surprising you haven't asked the question already, because it's normally the question I get very early on. What does this look like in my programs? How many Catholic values do I need? How many does it have to fit into a unit of work? Are they going to check this in compliance and peer review? Very good teachers haven't asked that. Normally that's where teachers begin with. So I'll answer it anyway, because some of you are probably thinking it. If we were to go down the compliance path, then that's a stick to basically scare teachers. We don't want that in a Catholic context, do we? Right? If I had to ask teachers who thinks this is important in a Catholic school, you would nearly get 100% of teachers putting their hand up going, in a Catholic school, this is what makes us a Catholic school. Otherwise, what's different about us? Right? This is what makes us different. Okay, yes, the prayer life and Mass and the sacraments and all those wonderful opportunities we give our kids, but in terms of teaching and learning, it's got to be different in a Catholic context. So hence, we haven't gone down the compliance path. Okay? So if you don't have these in your program, okay, you're not going to be found non-compliant. But this is best practice. So in peer review, it's not going to be on one of a checklist to check if you're compliant or not, but it will be part of the best practice guide. Okay? So, if I was there, and forget about peer review, any of those things, you as teachers and working with one another, if you were to see in your programs that there's absolutely no reference to Catholic values, then a question will be asked, I'm sure. What's going on? Well, this is a diocesan, wide approach, and how come nothing's there? But if you were to say, at your school, let's say now, mind you, this is the 3rd year at least, I think the 4th year, we're on this journey. So someone in your school, they haven't left, but there at least be members of your school that have attended the professional learning, that know about it, and hopefully there's some programs. But let's say that you aren't there, okay? Let's say your school is very early on in terms of Catholic values. You have to make the decision, okay, when I say you, as a school, how you're going to go forward in this. Sometimes to say, we've got no Catholic values, so we're going to ask our teachers across every single KLA to embed Catholic values, nothing happens, because it's just too big, right? So you need to think, even if you're the teacher and you don't have any of these in, my advice to you is start off with one subject, say I'm going to try it in English, okay, with my text. Or I'm going to try it in PDHPE. Just start it. And then you explain to, if you've got who it is, your coordinators, or that this is what I'm doing. Because if the question does come up, right, around Catholic values, at least there's some strategy and some, a way forward. So for all of us here, I would suggest, if you haven't gone down this path, or if it's just been a ticker box in your program, to really think about what's those 1 or 2 KLAs next term, in term 2, that I can try it. And then just go from there. It's not about compliance. It's not about forcing 6 Catholic values in every unit of work. what it is about being authentic. And actually, for us as teachers, this can be challenging work because we have to know the Catholic perspective, right? And that's the reason also why teachers sometimes don't go there, because it's too difficult. They think, well, I myself don't know. What if a kid in science asks me this question about the Big Bang, or what does the church teach about evolution? And I don't know how to answer it, so it's better I don't bring it up. Right? That's natural for teachers. It's okay for you to say to kids, look, I'll get back to you. But that's the whole point of the website, is to help you as teachers answer those questions. Okay? So, that's there for you. Now, you might say, well, Daryl, what might this look like in a program? Now, this has evolved. So what we started off with, to what I'm showing you today, has been at least, 3-4 years in terms of feedback from teachers, what's worked in classrooms and so forth. At the end of the day, this is what we want. We want the Catholic perspective. We want the kids to be able... My question I asked my Year 7s were, what does it mean to be human? What's the Catholic perspective on that? I want them answering that. I don't want them necessarily saying, Mr. Castelino, it's CV1, and just regurgitating that. I want them understanding the Catholic perspective. So, you want something in terms of, in your program, okay, a short, sharp definition of what is that main theme, what's the Catholic perspective I'm trying to draw out. Sometimes it'll be a few lines, like this one, or sometimes it's just one line. But what is the Catholic perspective? Also, you don't just want this on the top of your program, on the unit overview. What you want is an actual teaching and learning activity, right, in your unit. So you're not making history RE, you're not making science and tech and PDHPE an RE lesson, but what you are doing in your unit is just think about those 1 or 2 opportunities that you can have a lesson on the Catholic perspective. And what you would have in your program would be that activity. Because you might come up with something really great, and then next year you're on a different grade, right? It's good to share that, have it in the program, write it in. Some teachers say, I don't really need to write it, I'll just bring it up in the discussion. Kids will discuss things, you will discuss things, and you'll forget things, right? So this is about being prepared, so you go into class, just on what's that one activity I'm going to do? Is it going to be a brainstorm? In this case it was for history, stage 5 history, they were looking at wars. And the question was, should Australia involve itself in World War II? Great discussion the kids would have on that. But here they've got actually what the Catholic perspective is on that. Okay, what you've got in your booklets are a few different examples. So here's one, a primary example. Okay, around a geography one. So it was about field work. Okay, and it was around what was the activity that the kids had to go out and had to choose their favourite thing that they see outdoors, had to pick something. Okay, in terms of the geography, so go outside and actually do it. And the next part of the question was, how does it remind them of God? What's something about God that they can see a connection with? So there you've got an activity. You've got what the Catholic value or values, that can be sometimes more than one that it aligns to, and what is the Catholic perspective on that. Now for that one, the teacher will go, well, what am I going to use? We'll use the poster. That's why there's language around the poster to help you. So what's up there is basically a direct correlation, I'm pretty sure, of what it says, I think, on this poster here in CV5. Okay, so the poster's there to help you. So this is a bit of a template that you might think about in your unit. So here's a maths example as well. And in your own time you can have a look, you've got that there to help you with what are some examples or some templates of, how might I show this in my program so that I've planned for an activity. So you might say, how am I going to get the Catholic perspective? The first thing is the website. Please take time to have a look at the website, because that's where you'll get the information. You're not just expected to be able to know all the Catholic perspective on all the different areas. That's why the website's developed, so that it helps you do that. So if you have a look at the website, if you go into science, for instance, there's 2 sections, either primary or secondary. You can go into secondary and you can say, okay, normally there's an overview, and then you can go into specifics. Okay, so Earth and space, origins of the universe. So for a science teacher, if they've got questions on how am I going to explain the Big Bang and all those things, it's there for you. Okay, in teacher-friendly language to help, to assist you, okay, in being able to help with the Catholic perspective in class. Now, mind you, this resource is a teacher resource, so it's for you. You have to read it, have a look at it. There's videos. In secondary, you could probably use a lot of it in class. In primary, you've got to have a look at it and see what's applicable or not. But it's to give you the background info. And the idea is you're not reading pages and pages and pages, because I know we're all time poor. All right? There's just small snippets for you to read, okay, and if you want to do further reading, there's links in there for you to go further into it, but just to give you an overview of what the Catholic perspective is. Okay? I've talked a lot now. Okay? I want you to just think about that and have a look at the template, and I just wanted, because I don't want to keep you here till 7 o'clock at night. Okay? We'll want to go home. Okay, can you think about those questions? So think about what we've talked about and just think, okay, from today, what's been some of the key learnings from today? Are there still questions? And also I think it's important, because we've got members of the mission team here, to talk about what support might we need, okay, in this work. Can you just drop that down in your booklet? Okay, so some of the key learnings from today, support, and any still further wonderings that you've got. You're doing the accelerated course today, by the way. Okay, this is normally, you can do a day on it, but you get the hour and a bit version.
Yeah, it's not looking to focus on
we haven't been
that's my check. So we feel perfectly aligned with the redirection thing of design. Think about this. We're going
to give you another minute or two just to wrap up, and just think about, especially those, if any questions that you've got.
level up. So you can do general capabilities and you identify them. That's right. So if you're able to identify them, you should be able to identify these. But it's also, you don't want it to be from those Daryl said, you don't want to be from that context, like you actually want the kids talking about it. You want it to be intentional, it's not in the program.
Okay. So, any of these three questions, are any of those three, anyone like to share any perspective? So either key learning, support that's needed, or further questions. More importantly, the further questions is important because I don't want you leaving here still with, you know, a lot of wonderings and not knowing what to do. As I said, you've got a lot of learning compacted into like an hour and a bit. So what I do encourage you is just to absorb it and just try it out. That's the main thing. Give it a go. Okay, but are there any questions in moving forward?
I think moving forward, relaying this information onto our colleagues.
Yes.
And getting their ideas as well.
Yes.
So maybe we might not have an idea for a certain KLA, and then they go, oh yeah, what about this? And incorporate it with that. So maybe just, getting peer support from our colleagues and sharing this information is, I think, would be going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple of schools that have done really well that I've worked with, St Mads and Cape Kenshurst, a number of years I've been on the journey. So they did things like they had things up where they shared each other's great activities. They did some peer assessments on each other's programs and talked about how might the activity be better and what might we do, things like that. But see, there's a focus on it, and it's about sharing. We can't all think of it as individuals. Okay. So in the different KLA, in the different subject areas, there's individual professional learning courses for each one. Okay, so you might at the school think, you know what, I think we really want to focus on history, or we really want to focus in PDHBE. Just let one of the teaching educators know that. Okay, and we'll be able to, I'm sure, organise something on an afternoon or whatever to come out and support your school, okay, on that journey. So don't feel you're by yourself on this, especially if you're just starting off. Or you might think, I just want some one-on-one assistance. Speak to the mission team, okay, teaching educators. So it's really important that you know that you're not by yourself, okay? Would you like to say anything, Frank or Tanya, on that? I've just got you in to go out to some schools and...
I know that when I've been working with schools, we've highlighted it in RE, so that the students get to know it and it naturally fits in with RE, and finding those explicit connections with the Gospels. So that's been my focus, but I guess I can help with the other KLAs as well.
And I'll be in discussions with the teams and how we can support. But the main thing is we've got to hear from you. Okay, like if there's a need there, we'll be able to help. But that's often been the case where we've gone out to schools and supported teachers, or even put on an afternoon. So some schools wanted a whole, their PL session on science at 10, or in English, or whatever it was. So all those things are doable, but you've got to communicate that. Okay. Questions with the program? Are we okay with how we might capture that in our program? Okay. It's up to you as the teacher how you do that, like in terms of the number and where it fits in, and that's up to you. Now, we're not forcing you to do it every third lesson or to capture 7 of the values, but if you do it slowly, the kids will get exposure to all values if it's done well. Okay, so give it a go to start with. No other questions? We're all looking tired, so we might as well wrap up. Okay, so we'll sort out an evaluation or something that we might set later on, just to get your feedback, and also maybe think about some of the questions and further support that you would need. Okay, so you've got a hard copy, please email if you have any questions, but we'll be in contact with you.
I just want to say thank you to Daryl on behalf of everybody, and CEDP for putting that on for us, so we appreciate it.
Pleasure. Okay, safe travels.